Paul Williams is the former legal advisor to the UN Special Envoy to Yemen, currently holds the Rebecca Grazier Professorship in Law and International Relations at American University. Paul is also the co-founder of the Public International Law and Policy Group, a pro bono law firm providing legal assistance to states and governments involved in peace negotiations and in the prosecution of war criminals.
So, prospects for peace in Yemen. Big sigh. Wars end, as Nabil points out. The question is when and how. Will this war end before there is the large-scale famine? And will it end in a way that it's actually durable and isn't just a pause, rearm, and repeat? The prospects looking at the Stockholm Declaration, which I understand we'll talk about in the Q&A a little bit, are concerning. Many months of energy and diplomacy to get the guys with guns, we call them the parties, but basically it's the guys with guns, to Stockholm to agree upon a half-of-a-page framework agreement. Now, we've negotiated framework agreements in the past, and they're generally pretty thin, but we try to get them to page 2 or 3. This is just half a page. A page and a half ceasefire, but an unsigned ceasefire. The first provision of the ceasefire says, this ceasefire shall enter into a force upon the signature of the parties. There are no signatures, there are not even signature lines. And you do have a TAS agreement, and it's a third of a page, which essentially says the parties, the guys with guns, will consult on what to do with TAS. There is room for optimism, because all wars do end, but there are 4 key puzzles that have already been identified by my fellow panelists that must be solved in order to end the conflict in Yemen. The first is accountability. As President Marzouki pointed out, there is a delicate balance between peace and justice. Peace and justice were not balanced in the 2011 Gulf Cooperation Council Accord. Article 1 provided for amnesty, impunity for the president and members of his party. And we see what happened. It kicked us into this conflict. There's going to need to be a substantial mechanism for accountability as well as truth and reconciliation in whatever peace agreement comes to play. But you immediately hit the, are you delaying an end to the conflict if you're trying to seek accountability? But without accountability, you may end the conflict, but it may be pause, rearm, and repeat. Federalism, just touch on it briefly, huge issue during the national dialogue, during the constitution drafting situation, seen as a panacea for Yemen. It is likely to reemerge as part of the peace process. Exceptionally difficult for any country to move from a unitary to a federal state, especially a post-conflict country, and especially a country without a long tradition of decentralized governance. Third puzzle, guys with guns. Mediators get agreement by getting the guys with guns to sit down and sign something. When you have an agreement with guys with guns, there's no room for women, as Bushra has pointed out, no room for youth, no room for marginalized populations. How do you build a durable democratic structure if you're just accommodating, appeasing, negotiating with the guys with guns? That puzzle must be solved. The fourth and final puzzle, before I get the high sign from Mehdi, Southern questions. It's not just the Southern question anymore, it's the two Southern questions. It's what do you do with the Southern interests, and then if the South pursues self-determination, either internally or externally, what do you do with Hadramaut and their push for internal or possibly external self-determination? Okay, I'm trying to be a, optimist, pessimist? I think I sort of came a little bit on the pessimistic side, but let's throw it open to the Q&A.